you're hitting bottom and you're not even at bottom yet. Now, the reason that I will...
Can you imagine hearing that? You're like, fudge.
I know. But the reason that I tell people is because I want them to feel like they're on the right track, because those things that happen in our lives are meant to happen.
It's your transformative moment.
Right. It's your opportunity. Everyone goes through hitting bottom if you live long enough. It happens a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times in your life.
Hello, Heal Squad. Happy to be back with you here today. On this beautiful day, we have a great episode for you. But first, our quote of the day: have gratitude for all that you have, and you can be happy exactly as you are. That is from our guest today, my friend Mandy Ingber, author of Yogalosophy. She is a Los Angeles-based New York Times bestselling author, astrologer, and yoga wellness expert. She's been an astrology guide for more than 20 years, helping her clients discover and live out their life's purpose through understanding their birth chart. We're going to go into all of that. Her clients have included Jennifer Aniston, Brooke Shields, of course, myself. And she has done some really incredible work throughout the years. She's an incredible human, and I'm so happy to have her here on the show today. We're going to chat all about the best time to set intentions this year and why you should do your dream board then and not at the beginning of the year. We're going to go deep into the planets, what they mean for us, and how to use astrology for self-acceptance. I hope you enjoy. So, Mandy, I don't know, you've been on the show once before, right? A long time ago?
I've never been on Heal Squad.
Well, you were on some version of a show I did.
Yes. I think Extra actually was a long time ago.
Oh my God, Extra
I think
for
that
sure.
was the first time that I was ever interviewed.
But what about like my Sirius XM show? Any of those?
No, I don't think I did that.
Okay, interesting. So this is your first time like in here.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Heal Squad.
Thank you. So good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Yeah, no, we've known each other for a really long time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you did an astrology reading for my daughter Athena, and I have to tell you that it was funny because I had everyone in the kitchen listening. And I wanted them to listen because we had already talked about what we thought we felt about her. And so my husband and I had very strong feelings of like what her name, because her name was almost inadvertent, but not. And just what we felt about her, we had discussed. And then you confirmed everything we felt in that reading. And then thereafter, any psychic, any person who's tapped in has said the exact same things about her, that she's going to be like this guru and she's, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I never would have thought about using astrology like that because it was a gift from a friend mm-hmm. that brought us together for that. Like I've done astrology for me, and I think astrology is so cool because what I had in terms of breakthroughs is I really felt like I understood myself and I accepted myself more.
Right. That's what it's really good for. It's funny because I've noticed that no matter what system you use, it really boils down to, because what you just said about other psychics or other, mm-hmm. other, spiritual leaders or whatever saying the same thing, that almost every system boils down to, well, it's just you, so your astrology will indicate it, your numerology will indicate it. If you do human design, it all really boils down to it's this imprint of you.
Yeah.
We were actually before we were recording, you were mentioning intention setting, mm-hmm. and if you think about it, the moment that you're born is the ultimate intention setter, of who this person is. And
I just got chills.
Right? The cosmos is this reflection, it's an imprint, the way that the skies are when you come in from the vantage point that you come into, which is what determines the rising sign, right? Like where you were born, what time you were born, and the date you were born. it's this imprint, this energetic imprint on the individual. And it's fascinating to me too. I mean, I don't, when I'm reading a chart, I'm just basically translating and interpreting a language, right? Because the chart wheel looks like it's like a map of who this person is here to be and what they're designed to do. So that's all I was looking at when I was doing Athena's chart. I was just kind of going, okay, this is what I see.
Mandy, I'm going to pause you for a moment because I have to tell my friends about a little bit of the time I spent in the Dominican Republic, which I was telling you about before the show. And I seriously had some really great hair days there. Part of it is the natural ocean water that gives you that kind of wave, but the other part is my amazing products from Way, because I'm using their leave-in conditioner. Do you use Way?
I have not, but I will now.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
So first of all, the leave-in conditioner, I didn't want to wash my hair a lot while I was away. I just kind of didn't want to have to do a lot of anything other than, what I was there for, which was healing and sitting in the sun. So I would put the leave-in conditioner on and it kept my hair really moist and I love it. I've never felt better. Hair is, I think, the best accessory we have as women for sure, because if your hair is right, everything else feels right. I could have terrible makeup and great hair and it covers. So I have and in fact, today I used the hair oil. So I washed my hair and then before I dried it, I just put the hair oil. I just experimented. I put their hair oil in my ends. And then I did my dry brush. Ooh, and see, it's nice and soft.
You look amazing.
So Way has amazing products. They'll take your hair to the next level, friends. I use it and so many other amazing Way products that they have. So go to www.theway, that's OUAI.com, theway, OUAI.com, and make sure to use the promo code Heal Squad for 15% off at the checkout. Highly recommend the leave-in conditioner, but I would also get the hair oil. Okay. Moving on. Astrology. Isn't that so wild? Like, I love that you are still kind of astounded by the process as someone who's been doing this. When you talk to people, how do you explain astrology for them and what it should be used for?
Well, I think what I just said really, like what I try to share with people is this is a blueprint. This is like a map of what you're here to do, who you're designed to be. And when I'm reading somebody, it's really like this scavenger hunt, so it's collaborative.
Because it's an interpretation too.
Exactly. So we're looking at very specific things. Any astrologer is going to be looking at the same things, but then each different planet, each placement of the planet, the relationships of the planets, they all have multiple meanings. And so what you're trying to do is look for patterns in the chart that sort of back each other up. And so I often say it's kind of like we're on a scavenger hunt together. Mm-hmm. And also to know that whoever's interpreting your chart, they have their own view of the world that they're looking at. And so it is an interpretation. And for me, what I think of the best way to use the chart is something that you just said, which is to affirm that the way that you are is exactly perfect. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes, like when I look at somebody, like if I looked at your chart right now, I mean, it's a very intimate, personal thing actually to look at somebody's chart because you see a lot about a person. And it would be like more of a confirmation for me, like, oh, I can see that, I see how she, has this maternal quality, but is also super verbal or whatever it is, I know lightly that you're a Gemini, right? Yep. So obviously the Gemini energy is the communicator, the teacher. It's sort of like the person that knows about all the like gathers all the information.
That's so funny. Right? Someone on the trip I was on in the DR was like, you know everything. Like, and that's kind of a weird thing for me to say out loud, but he was like, you just know so many things about so many different subjects,
right?
Which is funny that you just said that.
That's the Gemini energy. And also it's like, it's not just, I don't know what else is in your chart, but whereas Sagittarius, which is the polar opposite of Gemini, goes deep into things like philosophically and goes really deep, is the higher education sort of planet. The Gemini energy is kind of, doesn't skim the surface. I'm not saying but it knows a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so that's
so accurate.
Yeah.
Because I wish that I could be the person that could really understand deeply all of it and be like a real doctor, let's say.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, no, I have an instinct and I know what's right. But sometimes I don't know how to explain the why.
Right.
Right. Because it's too deep and too intricate. I'm like, just trust me. Like, I know this.
Right. Well, because Gemini gets bored really easily.
Yeah.
Like you're probably happiest when you're doing multiple things, like you can't just, it's like even your work or whatever, you probably have to have a lot of things going on in order to keep your interest and kind of go from thing to thing. It's like it's like the pollinator in a way,
Yeah. But funny enough, I also love to just focus on one thing because I think I've been so overly scattered and spread out that like when I've been doing one thing, I feel like I've been my happiest. But I think that's where your rising sign and your moon sign probably come in, because they always say that you're less your sun sign. The sun sign is like kind of an aside. Is that true?
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that it's an aside. It's sort of like the kind of the kind of plant that you are, the kind of tree that you are. But the rising sign is way more specific because it's about the time that you were born. And the moon sign is the day you were born, right? The sun sign is like the month you were born. So it gets more and more, it kind of drills down more specifically, right? So it makes it more personal. Like the moon is actually way more personal than the sun sign. And therefore it is the part of you that is internal and emotional, but also related to your physical body.
Interesting.
Your needs, like your emotional needs, the way that you mother, the way that you've been mothered. The rising sign is the way that other people perceive you when you walk into the room, because it's sort of the way that you do things, the way that you express.
Interesting. I've never heard someone explain that.
Yeah. And then,
maybe I just forgot.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Sometimes you have to hear things many, many times before you get them.
It's
right?
true. Like that just hit me to understand what your moon sign does and what your rising sign represents.
And then each planet represents something different. Like your Venus, people are getting more savvy about astrology now that there's so much, on Instagram and whatever, all over social media, there's so much about astrology. I'm like, the Today Show is talking about astrology. It's shocking to me.
Who would have known?
Yeah. But I love that. But like your Venus is what you love. And Mars is the way you go about getting what you love. And then what happens, and Mercury is the way you communicate, right? Or the way that you think. And then there are different placements, like the stage is, there's a chart wheel. So that's what your chart looks like, a wheel that's split up into 12 pieces of pie, right? Which is all the 12 signs basically. So we all have everything in us, but we have certain placements where we have more, like if you have planets in a certain part of your chart or in a certain sign, you just have more of that ingredient in you. And anyway, so that's, I'm going off a little bit.
No, it makes me want to have another reading now with all of that knowledge in mind, because I think that takes you like to a whole other level of understanding, rather than just having someone say you're very justice and fair minded and all this stuff where it's like, yeah, you're right. Oh my God, no wonder I'm such a crazy person about like being super fair or whatever. But to understand the way you just explained it, all those things in a deeper way, I think is really powerful. Do you know, so is there a specific astrology that you practice? Because I've heard that Ayurvedic astrology is the most accurate. What do you say to that? Well,
so you mean basically like Eastern astrology, like Vedic astrology?
Yeah.
I'm not a Vedic astrologer. I'm a Western astrologer. And like I said earlier, both like, even though my Vedic astrology is different than my Western astrology, the combination of things still spits out Mandy, like no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
You've had your chart read by both sides.
oh yeah, I've had all of the things read, yeah, multiple times by different people, and each person adds a different thing, right? So it's great it's kind of like going to different exercise teachers, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a different little bit of information, and you might resonate with one person and not another person. So it's not like there's a right. I don't believe that there's a right way to do things. I think that we gravitate towards the things that are right for us. That said, I do Western astrology, and I find that it's very accurate if you know the time that the person was born, and basically what you're doing in terms of like predictive things is that, if that's what you mean, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I have someone who really loves Vedic astrologers because they're really good at accurately predicting, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
I got that. And also Vedic astrologers have very specific cures for things, right? Like I remember, they would say feed birds seeds on Saturdays for me. Like you do well if you give seeds to birds on Saturdays.
Interesting.
So they have very specific cures. But the way that I look at it is, I'm a Western girl, and I was born here in the West. And so for me, my Western astrology works very well. And the way that I can get predictive, or that one can get predictive, is basically there's the way that the sky looked, or the way that the cosmos looked when you were born. And then you take the way that the cosmos is now, and you superimpose it upon your natal astrological chart. And then you can see where all the planets are hitting. So if, for instance, so Saturn might be like moving on top of a planet in my chart. And when Saturn hits a planet in my chart, like Venus, it's like it's on, because Saturn brings tangible results. And so I know that something's going to happen. Either I'll be in love, I'll have trouble in love. Something tangible will happen in that area of my life. And it's pretty accurate.
Wow.
That's the fun part, seeing how it kind of plays out. I learn a lot about astrology just experiencing my life.
Yeah.
People often talk about having like psychedelic experiences or whatever, and I say, life is a very, very slow psychedelic experience. So one of the best ways to learn about astrology is to sort of notice where things are and how they're hitting in your chart, and then you get to see, oh, okay, this is just a growth opportunity for me in terms of relationship.
Yeah. So you can experiment with yourself.
Yes.
So how often do you read yourself?
I mean, that's something that in the beginning, I think when you're first reading charts, you do maybe too often. I think it's a lot. It's just like anything. It's like harder to give yourself a massage.
Well, because you're going to be skewed in a way where it's like you might want something and want less of the other, and now you're confused about what you're feeling and what you're interpreting.
Right. There has to be some level of detachment when you're looking at your own chart, and I think that just takes maturity. Like when I was younger, it was more, does this guy like me? What's going to happen with it? That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then as I get older, I just start to notice the way that things are and learn from them, Sometimes there's this tendency to want to bypass things, if you see something difficult might be coming up, you might want to avoid it, right? But what I choose to do, or what I like to do, and what I like to give others to do is, okay, here we have a transit coming up. You're learning a lesson. You're having a death rebirth experience. So what can we actively do to engage that energy? Not so that you have control. I mean, in a way, though, it feels good to like use it for good.
Yeah, it's like almost like let's learn it and move on.
Right. But I found that I tried to do that with certain transits in my life where I was like, ooh, this looks like it's going to be really hard.
Painful.
why, let me try to do this on purpose, intentionally. And then I still had to I did the intentional, but then I still also had to do like the car accident or whatever,
Yeah.
So I think that in general, it's great to look at things and go, okay, this is meant to be happening. This is fated. So let me get the deep lesson here. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's kind of, I mean, isn't astrology basically like your life written?
yes.
So if it's written and you believe that, then these things are going to happen inevitably. You can try to dodge the bullet, but it's still coming.
It's coming, and then the other part of it is it's meant to be coming. So it's kind of it's like anything where you go, okay, here I am. What can I, how can I just squeeze this for everything that it's worth?
Yeah.
And I think that it helps to know, for me, it helps to know that it's meant to be happening.
Yeah.
This is meant to be.
That has gotten me through the last 7 years of health crises, to be honest. And I'm so grateful that I went to that Tony Robbins seminar where he said, life is happening for you, not to you, because I took it, I digested it, and I said, okay, this is going to be my tool as things happen. And even when we were chatting before we started talking live on the show about all the different health things, I really know that I'm meant to go through these things, whatever it is, and hopefully they're over, so I can figure them out, because I know that I'm such an investigator, and I know I can heal anything that comes my way. And that actually came from another astrologer just before I had the pancreas tumor. I sat with her in my backyard, and she did this whole exercise with me where she really taught me that I'm like all air and water, and there's like very little earth, which is why I struggle with organization. Even though I'm pretty good at it, it's still like it's a thorn in my side. But she said, you're a healer and you can heal anything that comes your way. And again, that's a little nugget. I took it and I was like, okay, we got to remember this. And so I do. I know that this journey, whatever I signed up for, this is it. And I just trust. I'm not trying to make anything happen, like life-wise, career-wise. I'm just kind of floating, and I follow the breadcrumbs. I'm like, God, just show me what I'm supposed to learn. Show me what I'm supposed to do. And then you have those like eureka moments where the breakthroughs come and you're like, okay, got it. All right, what's next? And so, cool.
Something that occurred to me when you were just talking is, Gemini also is the messenger, right? And words are magic, right? So it's the word and it's the message. So all the things you're talking about for me fall under that category of bringing the message.
Yeah.
And what also occurred to me is without any earth, this is just a theory, right? So like this is where interpretation comes in. But something about like the things happening in the physical body, it's in an interesting way. That's what keeps you here. It pins you to your body so that, things that happen to our bodies pin us to our bodies so that we stay present here on the planet. And if you're all feelings and ideas, or if you're all air and water, something has to keep you grounded, right?
Interesting.
So I don't know. That's just
That's an interpretation. I know.
It's an interpretation.
Well, it's funny because I think my friend John Amaral, who's been on the show, he's an energy healer. He's told me so many times when he works on me, he's like, you're way out. You're not in your body. And so I think that's also why I gravitate to nature, and I love being in, nature, because it does ground me.
Yeah.
But when you do all of this, you start to learn about yourself, and then you don't feel like a wackadoodle. You don't feel nuts because you see that someone's confirming what you are without knowing you. Without knowing you, just looking at the time of birth, the place of birth, and all of that, they're telling you who you are, and you're like, oh my God, that checks. Yes, that checks.
Right.
And that's why I thought, what an ultimate gift to give someone for their newborn baby. I thought that was the best gift ever. And then, of course, I gave so many after. I was like, this is the best, because you can kind of see what could be. And then, you can leave it there. Like I always say to Kevin, I'm like, I don't care what she becomes. She could become a hairdresser, a post office worker, a guru, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But I'm just so curious to watch.
Right.
Because you can transform lives and be a guru in any position. Think of how many bartenders are gurus.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm not here to put any pressure on what she's going to be, but it's really fascinating to see. And then to have so many people confirm it later in different ways. It was really bananas.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, for me, it's fun to like sort of uncover, what might be. And yeah, with reading like like an infant or a child, you definitely want to be careful not to pin someone down to anything, right? Because there's so many different ways that we can express ourselves. And so yeah, it's just that balance, right? Of like how to deliver, the information in the most positive, and that's what I try to do.
Well, I think with anything like this, whenever I've done psychic readings or astrology or any of it, it's like noted, put aside. Mm-hmm. And then we like to go back and be like, oh my gosh, this happened, that happened. It's like a dream board.
Yeah.
I would make my dream board at the beginning of the year. I never really looked at it again. And then I'd go back to it a year later and be like, holy shit, so many things happened.
Totally.
That's wild.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
I actually wanted to share with you about, because I saw that there was like a dream board thing that you were doing, right? So most people do their vision board, at the beginning of the year. Astrologically, March 21st or 20th, the beginning of the astrological year, is the best time to set intention.
March 21st?
Yes. So that's the beginning of right? Or it's March 20th, 21st. That's the beginning of the astrological new year, and it's when you plant your seeds, right? So if we are going with the sort of the rhythm of seasons, which astrology is part of that rhythm, right? Everything's in cycles. Mm-hmm. The winter, which is, when January happens, is like for ruminating and kind of looking into, where you're at and what you want to create, right? Sort of ruminating about that. And then spring is the time to plant the seeds. So I always say that in the beginning of the year, like you don't feel like you have to know exactly what you want yet, because even the phrase "I want," that is related to Aries and basically spring and the astrological new year. So whoever has missed, like when this show is on, if you missed January for your vision board, March is actually when I like to do mine.
Oh, see, I'm going to tell Kevin because he didn't do his yet.
There's time.
And I'm going to tell him to do his then. I decided to do a digital one because one of the girls on our team had done them digitally. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much better because you can have it on your phone. You can have it, in a way where it's still private. I always had such a hard time. Where do I put this?
Right.
Because it's my inner kind of stuff and it's very private to me. And so I would make it and then kind of stuff it under the bed. And I was like, I really want to be able to glance at it almost like as something to keep me on track. Because it's kind of also your goals, right? So you want to, I want to keep working on this project. I want to keep working on that. So I told him I would help him make his digitally. So now we'll have to do it in March.
Cool. Yeah. So that Aries energy, which is the beginning of the zodiac, it likes to have. It's about vision. The eyes are related to Aries, and it's like about seeing it likes to look at something, like it likes to see what it wants. And so that's why the vision board is so great for that, because if you can see what you're going for, that's very Aries. And I actually, initially with Yogalosophy, I had a vision mat. Mm-hmm. So I would take my vision board and put it on my yoga mat.
No way.
Yes, and so what I found is that when you're doing physical exercise, it's going in subliminally, right? And you're taking action. So something about like exercising and looking at your what inspires you basically that goes really well together too.
What a great idea. By the way, Yogalosophy is Mandy's books here.
Yes.
And so they're probably still available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, they are.
My books aren't available anymore.
Really?
Yes.
They ran out of inventory. That's a good.
They never resold them, and they were like they ran out of stock, and then that was it. But that's how we first met. Is you were doing yoga to the stars, and but I like that yoga mat dream board.
Yeah.
How did you actually affix it?
Well, I was in a partnership with a company that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And so we were able to create the vision mat, take a picture of it, and then they had a way that
manufacture it, which now is
it.
So easy because you can do that online with like Kodak or whatever. They put it on mugs, they put it on anything.
Right. So you can still do that.
What a great idea. Yeah. You could put it on your mug.
Yeah.
Your vision board on your mug would be cool every morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that too. I love that. But I think when you're doing your yoga you're so present. That's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah. Well, I found that, so prior to teaching yoga, I actually taught spinning, right? I'm so many things.
Yeah.
But, cause I have a Gemini moon, and also my sun, I'm a Capricorn, but my sun is in the 3rd house, which is the Gemini house.
Interesting.
So I also have a lot of that thing of the messenger and the message and communicating. So, I found that, so I'm like, jack of all trades, but
and the moon is your personal, you said.
The moon is the most personal. Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, it lodged in. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, because it's your internal emotional life. Anyway, so for me, I'm really Gemini-ish, like my needs are very Gemini-ish. I need to have all the information. But what I found is that when I was, people are very vulnerable when they're exercising, right? Like you open up a lot and you feel a lot. And as we were talking about before, because you were talking about Joe Dispenza, so much of manifesting has to do with feeling emotionally. You feel the emotion of what would happen if you had da-da-da-da, as if you already are experiencing it. And so I found that through exercise and through physical activity, we are so emotionally driven. And if I could get people into that state where they were open emotionally, and that then being able to like see your vision and you'd really feel like that feeling. So I don't know, that's
interesting because I think, and you said you started that with spinning. When I started doing Soul Cycle for the hot minute that I did it, it was the most emotional thing I ever did. I guttural cried in the back of Soul Cycle classes like a baby. It would just happen and I would just let it out. And it's a dark room. No one would see me. No one was looking at me because everyone was in their own self-torture moments, right? You're suffering because you're trying to keep up. But if you have the right instructor, yes,
in those moments, it's that breakdown or breakthrough, right? In those moments, if the person can frame that experience in the most positive way, right? Like then you start to you start to train yourself and you start to realize that anytime that you hit a wall emotionally, anytime something is happening for you in your life where you feel like you can't go on or whatever, if you can connect in with that feeling and understand that that is the moment that you actually are making a change, that is the moment that you are actually looking for. So many people stop when they feel difficulty, but when we start to train ourselves, through exercise or whatever the experience is, to get excited about that feeling, because that is when
that's breakthrough time.
Yes. And so
if you just get to the other side, which, as Tony says, you're usually like 2 millimeters away.
Which is why people need coaches, a lot of their time. And that's another way that astrology can be used, right? To like go, okay, look, you are in this part of your chart, you are in this part of your experience where it's called hitting bottom. Okay, so like some people, recently I've had some people come to me and I'm like, look, you're hitting bottom and you're not even at bottom yet. Now, the reason that I will...
Can you imagine hearing that? You're like, fudge.
I know. But the reason that I tell people is because I want them to feel like they're on the right track, because those things that happen in our lives are meant to happen.
It's your transformative moment.
Right. It's your opportunity. Everyone goes through hitting bottom if you live long enough. It happens a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times in your life. And each time that it happens, it's like a spiral, right? It's a spiral up. So the first time that it happens, that's the hardest. The second time, you've been through it before, so you're going to be able to come out of it. Anyway, all of these things, planets go in cycles, and certain planets have lessons for us. I'm talking about Saturn right now. So Saturn is one of those planets. When people have like their Saturn returns, it's like at age 29. Usually you're setting yourself up for like the next 30 years of your life, right? Mm-hmm. But that Saturn hits different things in our charts all the time. And sometimes when you're having difficulty, it's really about Saturn, and understanding that you're just learning lessons. Usually when Saturn is finished with a certain part of your chart, it leaves you with a parting gift. So there's usually a tangible reward.
Mm-hmm. That's where Kevin and I always say, if something bad's happening, something good is around the corner.
That's right. Exactly.
And it's true.
It is true.
But when you live long enough, you see those patterns. Right. As you get older, you start to see the patterns. So we don't panic anymore.
Right.
We're kind of like, oh, the contractors walked out on the job. Oh, the house flooded. Oh, okay. All right. Cool, we got it. We know what's going to happen. So something good's coming soon.
Right. Experience. Yeah. So this is a wonderful thing about experience.
Mandy, I have to stop you right there. One more thing I have to share with our friends, because they keep the lights on here. And this is how I get to do what I get to do that I love every single day. And it's a funny full circle story, because I worked for Macy's as a fragrance spritzer when I first, I started when I was in college doing this. And it's funny how it all came full circle, and they've been our biggest supporter here on this show.
Wow.
And they love what we're doing. And so, friends, as summer is approaching, I'm looking for some exciting new looks. I'm very grateful for Macy's, because of course they have everything that we need for literally every occasion, whether it's our fashion, our home, baby, etc. I recently got a really incredible dress. I got a great bomber jacket. I got a few things. And I will share the photos with you guys, but Macy's has been my go-to. It's given me the flexibility of finding everything that I need in one place, which I love. So if you're looking for a place that has everything, you can check out Macy's. If you need some inspiration, I have curated my own list of my favorites to make it easy for you. It's kind of my shopping list. So when I need something, I know I can go quickly and buy a gift, or summer's approaching. I've already picked a few things so they're ready for me. Because if I buy it too early, sometimes I get annoyed when it's in my closet and I don't love it until it's time to wear it. Uh-huh. I'm a weirdo like that. So I like to keep it in my list, and then like my queue, and then I pull it out. So Macy's.com/Heal Squad. Anything you buy through that link supports us directly on the show and helps us to continue doing the great work we're doing here. Thank you, my friends, for that. Mandy, let's talk about transits. So you shared a little bit about the planets and what they represent, and you started to talk about transits a little. Can you explain what the transits are?
Yes. So basically, when you're born, there's a snapshot of the way that the sky is at the time. Transits just mean when the planets move, they hit your natal planets. So, for instance, so each planet has a different cycle, right? Some planets have a really long cycle, like Pluto is a planet that has like a 245-year cycle. So it's not going to hit everyone, it's not going to hit your moon for everyone, but it depends, so for some people it does.
Wait,
right?
What does Pluto do?
It's a death rebirth experience. So it's basically like a demolition.
I just got the chills again.
Right. Well,
Pluto, stay away. I'm done. I've had mine.
You probably, you have a Cancer moon. Is that right?
I forget.
Okay. Whatever. We can look at it and we can look at it later. But anyway, that's over. Don't worry. So Pluto's actually coming. I know that because so Pluto has just moved. Okay, we're talking about Pluto. Pluto has just moved out of Capricorn into Aquarius. And Pluto is a generational planet. So it really defines the generation. Okay. It's a collective experience. So we all have an experience of Pluto, but for some of us, Pluto might hit a point on our chart that directly affects a certain part of the self. Does this make
more
sense?
intensely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that how you can read what's going on in the world too?
Yes. Well, the way that you can read what's going on in the world, yes. So the 3 planets that are sort of responsible for like world events or generations are Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Okay, so those are responsible for the groups, big
Life
groups, like
events.
generations.
So where are they at now?
So
what is
Pluto,
it saying?
okay, so what's happening with that right now is Pluto has just moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. Pluto stays in a sign for it's not circular. So I think it was in Capricorn for 15 years. It's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. So that defines something about that generation.
Aquarius sounds a lot better, right? No. Oh, frig. No, Mandy.
Well,
I was hoping maybe it was going to be good.
Pluto is
Aquarius air or water?
It's air.
Okay.
So it's like if we get out of the idea of good or bad,
okay,
then we're just talking about a certain kind of energy. Pluto is a transformational energy, so it's a death rebirth experience.
Yeah,
so,
clearly.
For instance, when it went into Capricorn, it was in 2008. The sign of Capricorn represents, governments, banks, systems, the patriarchy, this sort of structures. So we saw this transformation of, political structures, banking structures, financial structures like that. It started in 2008. So remember the financial crisis, that's when it started.
Yeah.
So Pluto takes...
And a historic election in Obama.
Yes. I mean, look at what happened to all of the political systems during these last 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of death rebirth. There's been a lot of upheaval. So now that it's moving into Aquarius, it's out of that area, but now we're going into a transformation of the Aquarian energy. And Aquarian energy is, it's AI, it's the people. So it's humanity at large. It's large groups of people. It's social. It's society. So we're coming into this like Pluto energy into that. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, this is going to be powered to the people. Like I've heard astrologers say that, and that's true. However, we don't want to. It's not just positive. We have the full spectrum of what Pluto brings. So it could be a lot of transformation around in these areas, and Pluto's really ultimately about power. So in order to really understand power, sometimes we get disempowered. So
that's interesting because I feel like I've had a chat with an astrologer about this where my interpretation was AI is kind of the big bad, wolf. And the only way we're going to be able to beat AI is if we come together as a people. And so we're going to be disempowered by AI in a sense, but then we can turn that around the other way.
I think it's all yes and. I think that there is so much available to us in the, anything you can imagine exists probably. Okay. And it's really, where are you going to put your mind, energy, and attention? Right. So we'll go, okay, well, there's that piece. So that's one part of the generational experience. And the great part is we're going to get to experience this. So we won't have to wonder what this is about.
Yeah.
We're going to get to experience it. And it's meant to be, right?
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right. Then we have Neptune. And Neptune is more like the collective unconscious, right? So right now, Neptune is still in Pisces. And so there's like, sort of like creative, maybe confusing, maybe druggy. It could be pharmaceutical. There's all this, that Neptune is a very soft focus. It represents a lot of things. It can be illusion, but it can also be spirituality, right now we're still in the Pisces, Neptune in Pisces. Next year, Neptune's going to move into Aries. So that's a really different energy. So we're going to see how that plays out, right?
Got it. What is Aries going to do?
Right, we'll see. Aries
but what does that carry?
The Aries energy is, like I said, there's like 30 things we could say about the Aries energy. But I mean, war is one of them.
Okay. Okay.
But so is identity. So is leadership. Following your impulse. I think maybe becoming more individual. Like the individual might come into play when Neptune is in Aries. But we'll have to see, Wow. And we haven't experienced it before.
Yeah.
Right? And then Uranus right now is in Taurus, and it's going to move into Gemini.
Ooh.
And so when Uranus moves, Uranus is the planet of shocking awakenings.
Okay.
So it's like...
And Taurus is so stubborn. So what is that? What are we currently in then?
Well, we think of... So yes, you're right. So a Taurus with change Taurus does not love change. And our Tauruses are experiencing more change than they've ever experienced. They're in the middle of it. So they're probably about 5-6 years into change.
Meaning people who are Tauruses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Is Kevin a Taurus? Or
no, my brother is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's probably changed a lot and had to change a lot over these last several years in a way he was not expecting.
100%.
But the good part about it is, he's probably gotten better at change. Taurus is about our resources. So, like if we're looking at how our resources have changed, and you could look at, again, finance.
What resources, Mandy? They're gone.
Okay.
How many trillions in deficit are we?
Yeah. So that's like, change. Our natural resources as well. There's like it's really about changing our resources. And so next year, Uranus is going to move into Gemini, and that's a lot more. Gemini is more like communication, the electronics. It's more buzzy. It's media. So we'll see what happens. I mean, with the combination of Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini, that's going to make some major changes in terms of the internet and AI and all that stuff, and it's going to go very quickly. That's not that surprising given what we know now, and also we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah,
that's going to be very rapid when that happens. I'm not sure.
All I know is when you say that, I have chills all the way down my body. Wow. Well,
I just don't want to add one more thing to that. So that's kind of like when new people are coming in, they are part of this new energy and this new generation. So what I was saying about during the whole lockdown pandemic thing, I'm like, these kids, man, that are coming in now, they are badasses.
Yeah.
I what they're going to be at age 20, So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm excited or terrified. Probably more terrified.
I think that you should do what you've done with everything else and become excited about it.
Yeah.
Because why not?
This is a good point, actually, because I feel like all I hear is everybody complaining and my husband does it too. And then this is going to happen. And I'm like, oh my God, you're wasting so much energy, being so upset by what's happening. Either do something or, stay focused on you and what you're going to do and what effects you're going to have. Otherwise, it's just too much.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's where we get back to. Those are generational things. And for some people, it will hit personal points for them. Okay.
Triggering them?
Yes. So it's almost like if you imagine playing pool, sometimes I'll say this, maybe it'll hit, maybe it won't. But so when a planet is moving around and you could line it up with another planet, it sort of ricochets off, right? So that's what a transit is. It's when a planet is touching one of your personal planets, like a planet in the sky right now is touching one of your personal planets and then setting off a reaction in your own chart. So in our own charts, there is a relatedness between all the planets. So for me, when something hits my moon, it triggers all of my planets. That's not going to happen for everyone, right? But when it hits a planet, it sort of triggers all of the planets that's in relationship to.
Yeah, and that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so it's fun.
It is fun. Thank you so much. I feel like I really have an even better understanding of astrology after today, and I can't wait to do another reading. I'm going to set one up with you because now knowing that, I feel like I can go a little deeper. But Mandy, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing everything. Friends, you can get her books, Yogalosophy, on Amazon.com, and we will put other resource links for Mandy in the summary of this episode. In the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.